I think the underlying point that this government has to deliver the change that it promised. There's things that we need to get done over the next 4 years. Otherwise, voters will vote for someone that will deliver that change.
Labour needs a leader more like Trump. These aren't my words. They're from Jo White, the newly elected MP for Basset Law and chair of Labour's own Red Wall group. In a stunning public rebuke of Keir Starmer, she's accused him of dithering, weakness and political cowardice. Reform UK just obliterated Labour's majority in Runcorn, flipping a traditional stronghold as Nigel Farage declares his party the winner of 2025. Is this the beginning of Labour's collapse in the Red Wall? The evidence suggests Starmer's leadership style isn't just unpopular, it might be politically fatal. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Labour's Red Wall's crumbling before our eyes, and the evidence isn't just concerning, it's potentially catastrophic. The Runcorn and Helsby by-election represents a seismic shift in British politics, with Reform UK overturning what was once considered an impenetrable Labour majority. This wasn't a minor upset, but a fundamental rejection of Labour, in an area they've taken for granted for generations.
Anyone that says Labour hasn't had anything other than a bad night, I reckon is in denial, but let's...
Voters in Runcorn will get a chance in 4 years' time to deliver a verdict on whether their Reform MP has actually done anything for their area or not.
The voter data across Red Wall constituencies tells a story of abandonment. Working class communities that once formed the backbone of Labour support are turning away in unprecedented numbers. When we examine the granular polling, particularly in post-industrial towns across northern England and the Midlands, the pattern becomes unmistakable. Labour is losing its core identity, and its core voters know it. Nigel Farage, sensing blood in the water, has boldly declared Reform UK the winner of 2025.
Well, Harry, I think the message from voters is clear. Voters want change. They voted for it last July. Reform MPs actually do any good at all for their areas, because so far Reform MPs have spent a lot of time not in their constituencies. And
this isn't mere political posturing. At his victory conference, Farage outlined exactly how his party is systematically dismantling the traditional political landscape. Reform UK is taking votes from Labour in the north and from the Conservatives in the south. This two-pronged attack has positioned Reform as the primary beneficiary of voter dissatisfaction with both major parties. The recent local elections provide concrete proof of Reform's growing strength.
And the results overnight have demonstrated that voters want to see change delivered further and faster and more of it in the places that we've done that.
It looks like they think that Reform are going to be the people to deliver that change. The Tories had 14 years and the voters don't seem too impressed with them.
The party now controls 9 local authorities across England and has secured several mayoral victories. These aren't symbolic wins, they represent a genuine transfer of power that's reshaping local governance across traditional Labour territories. Perhaps most damning for Labour's prospects is Farage's assessment of the broader political landscape. This Conservative party, once the party of government for 200 years, is now being hollowed out, he stated. Branches closing, members leaving, no councillors, no reason to campaign. This is the beginning of the end. If the Conservatives are collapsing, logic suggests Labour should benefit. But instead, Reform is capturing this political vacuum. What's driving this shift? Voter concerns in Red Wall constituencies centre on issues Starmer appears unwilling to address. Immigration control, cultural identity, and economic security. These communities feel ignored by a Labour leadership more comfortable in metropolitan London than in the working-class streets that built the party. The brutal reality for Labour is this.
As in Doncaster with Doncaster Airport, voters have stuck with Labour, and in places where voters want us to do more, because that's what voters are consistently voting for, and to be honest, have done for a decade, is right and is really, really important. And
they're not just struggling in the Red Wall, they're witnessing the systematic dismantling of their electoral foundation. With Reform UK positioned to deliver what could be a knockout blow in 2025, the threat isn't merely about losing seats. It's about the potential extinction of Labour as a viable political force in its traditional heartlands. This existential crisis has now triggered an unprecedented response from within Labour's own ranks. Enter Joe White, with criticism that has sent shockwaves through the party. When a Labour MP tells their own leader to be more like Donald Trump, we're witnessing something genuinely extraordinary within British politics. Joe White, the newly elected MP for Basset Law and chair of Labour's Red Wall Group, has delivered a critique so brutal it raises serious questions about Starmer's ability to maintain party unity. Her position isn't merely symbolic. As chair of the Red Wall Group, she directly represents Labour MPs in precisely the constituencies where Reform UK is making its most significant gains.
I think the underlying point that this government has to deliver the change that it promised. There's things that we need to get done over the next 4 years. Otherwise, voters will vote for someone that will deliver that change.
White's accusations against Starmer are remarkable in their directness: dithering, weakness, and political cowardice. These aren't mere policy disagreements, but fundamental challenges to his leadership character. She's essentially questioning whether Starmer possesses the basic qualities required to lead the party, let alone the country. This reveals deep frustration among MPs who fear electoral annihilation in their constituencies while Starmer hesitates. Perhaps most shocking is White's explicit call for Starmer to emulate Trump's leadership style. "Stop pussyfooting around and start leading like Trump," she demanded, urging him to act decisively and follow your instincts and don't be afraid to upset the status quo. For a Labour MP to publicly advocate for Trump-like leadership represents a seismic shift in party politics, particularly as Labour has traditionally defined itself in opposition to Trump's brand of populism. White identified 3 specific policy areas where Starmer is failing: immigration, grooming gangs, and treatment of pensioners. She stated Labour has run from these issues for years, precisely the areas where Reform UK is connecting with disaffected Labour voters. Her proposed solutions signal a dramatic break with Labour orthodoxy: digital ID cards for immigration control, once considered taboo within Labour; immediate Telford-style public inquiries into grooming gangs, and reconsidering policies affecting pensioners, particularly criticising the loss of winter fuel payments as Labour's poll tax moment. These policy recommendations reveal a fundamental disconnect between Starmer's leadership and Red Wall voters' concerns. White directly attacked Starmer's immigration rhetoric and Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper's approach as not cutting it, with voters who feel abandoned by the party. If Starmer ignores this rebellion, the consequences could be catastrophic. White warned that without decisive action, Reform UK will continue sweeping up disaffected Labour voters. What she's ultimately criticising isn't just policy failures, but Starmer's fundamental inability to lead with the decisiveness, courage, and connection that traditional Labour supporters demand. This internal crisis now raises profound questions about Labour's very identity and future electoral viability. Labour now faces what can only be described as a potential extinction-level event in its traditional heartlands. Caught between Reform UK's surging popularity and an internal rebellion led by MPs like Joe White, Starmer stands at a crossroads. White's call for airset of Labour's approach isn't merely political positioning. It represents genuine fear within the party. The next few months will determine whether Starmer heeds these warnings or continues what White characterises as his dithering leadership style. This crisis transcends normal political strategy. It cuts to the very heart of Labour's identity and raises serious questions about whether the party can survive Reform UK's challenge in the constituencies that once formed its unshakable foundation.